Okay, tutorial questions for chapter 1. Let's see the first question. Okay, this is the questions total. There are 5 questions here, and let's see the first questions. Questions number 1 discuss the evolutions of business ethics as a field of study from before 1960 to the present. Okay, the first question. Actually, for these questions, the answer you can get it from the slide. Okay, the answer is from the slide. Okay, so here is my answer. Answer for the questions number 1. So we know that for the evolutions of business ethics, there are 5 stages. Okay, the before 1960, the 1960, in the 1970, 1980, and 1990. So here we need to elaborate, we need to explain it one by one, okay, step by step. So before 1960, the business ethics issues were discussed primarily from a religious perspective, okay? And starting from the years of 1960, okay, we saw the emergence of many social issues that involving the business and the concept of social conscience, as well as a rise in consumerism. This is the keywords. Okay, this is the keywords. The red highlighted color here is the keywords. Okay, the keywords for each of the stages. So we culminated with the Kennedy Consumer Bill of Rights, and starting in the years 1970s, the business ethics that began to develop as an independent field of study, with academics and practitioners exploring the ethical issue and attempting to understand how the individual and organizations make ethical decisions. So this expert began to teach and write about the idea of the corporate social responsibility, okay, CSR. Corporate social responsibilities is an organization's obligations to maximize its positive impact on the stakeholder and minimize its negative impact, okay. The famous corporate social responsibility, we can see that for the big corporations, for example, like Rimbunan Hijau, right? Rimbunan Hijau, they give the scholarship, they provide the scholarship to the excellent student, okay? So this is one of the corporate social responsibilities. Okay, another example is, for example, we organize the blood donations event, okay, blood donations event. And then in the years of 1980, Center of Business Ethics provided publications, courses, conference, and seminars, and many companies established ethics committees and social policy committees. So DII, Defense Industry Initiative on Business Ethics and Conduct, was developed to get the corporate support for ethical conduct, and its principle had a major impact on the corporate ethics. So the Reagan era ushered in the belief that self-regulations rather than regulations by the government, so was in the public best interest this time. So for this year, okay, the keyword center of the business ethics, DII, okay, DII. And in the years 1990, the Clinton's administrations, they continue to support the self-regulations and free trade. Although it strengthens regulation in some areas like health-related social issues, then, yeah, keyword here is the Federal Sentences Guideline for Organizations, okay? These organizations has passed the Congress in the years of 1990, and is based on the 6th principle of the DII, codified into the law incentive to reward organizations for taking the actions, okay, such as developing effective internal legal and ethical compliance programs in order to prevent the misconduct, okay? So the important thing, okay, when you're answering these kind of questions, you need to know the keywords, okay? For example, 1960, the religious perspective, and 1960, the rise in consumerism, okay, start in this year. And in 1970, in where they start to develop the business ethic as a field of study. In 1980, okay, DII started, okay, DII was developed. And in the years 1990, we have the Federal Standards Guideline for organizations, okay? You just need to remember the keywords here. Okay, let's move to the next questions. Questions number 2. Why is it important that business people study business ethics? So ethical misconduct is a major business concern, and organizations are under greater scrutiny than ever by the stakeholder. Scrutiny here means that they are under observations by the stakeholder. Okay, this stakeholder, it can categorize into 2 categories. Okay, we have the primary stakeholder and we have the secondary stakeholder. Okay, primary stakeholders are the stakeholders that have the interest. Okay, they have the interest and they are influenced directly in the surviving of the businesses. For example, without primary stakeholder, the business cannot survive. So, example of the primary stakeholder: customer, employee. Okay, for example, MPI, our college. Who are the primary stakeholder? The primary stakeholder are students, the employee, the staff there, the admin staff, the securities, the lecturer. They are the primary stakeholder, right? Because without students, without management, without lecturers, without all of these supporting staff, the business cannot survive, right? Our college cannot survive. And in contrast with the secondary stakeholder are the group of people who has the interest towards the organizations, but without secondary stakeholder, the business can survive, okay, still can survive. Example of the secondary stakeholder are media mass, okay, media mass, or the labor unions, okay, labor unions are the secondary stakeholder. And then the misuse of the company resources, abusive behavior, harassment, accounting frauds, conflict of interest, defective products, bribery, and employee theft are all problems that cite as evidence of declining ethical standards in business and in other areas like the governments or sport. So misconduct, it can occur in any organizations, okay, even the small organizations. And the most common misconduct is misuse of company resources. Okay, for example, you use company photocopy machines to photostat your personal documents. Okay, this, even though you see this is just a simple things, but actually in the business ethic field, this is already categorized as misconduct. Okay, already misconduct. And regardless of what an individual believes about a particular actions, if society judges it to be unethical or wrong, whether correctly or not, that judgments will directly affect the organization's ability to achieve its business goal. Okay. Questions number 3. We all learn value from sources such as the family, religions, and school. So why might this source of individual value not prove very helpful when making complex business decisions? Okay, these kind of questions are very subjective. Okay, are very subjective. In where you can provide a lot of answer, a lot of different answer, as long as your answer is acceptable. Okay, then your answer is correct for this kind of questions. Okay, so here are the samples of my answer. Business ethic is not merely an extension of an individual own personal ethic. Okay, here are my keywords, the red highlighted one. An individual personal values and moral philosophies are only one factors in the ethical decisions making process. Okay, why we say it's only one factor? Because in business ethic field, okay, when you do the decision, actually there's a lot of factor influence, can affect. Okay, let's say even though you are a nice person, you have high ethic value, you have high moral, but then this is not enough. This is not enough for you to match the ethical decisions making process, because the process also can get influenced by the environment. Okay, your decisions making also can get influenced by your subordinates, can get influenced by your boss. Okay, even though you have high ethics, but your environment, this thing will influence you. Okay, guys. Then being a good person with the sound personality is not sufficient to handle the ethical issue that arise in the business organizations. Okay, that's why in the business we need to have the core value. We need to have the principles. Okay, and it's best if the management can provide some ethic training programs for the employee. Then the business strategy decisions is involve complex and detailed discussions. A high level of the personal moral development may not prevent an individual from violating the law in an organizational context. Then the value peoples learns from the family, religions, and school may not provide specific guidelines for the complex business decisions. Okay, we know that in business there's a lot of things happen. For example, conflict or interest might happen, and then the agency problems might happen. Okay, in the business. Okay, so the value itself is not enough. Okay, it's not enough, and it's not proved to be very helpful when we making the complex business decisions. And another thing is because there's a lot of things can influence. Okay, for example, the environment, our boss, our subordinates. Okay, the situations that time, all these things can influence our decisions making, right? Okay, next questions number 4. Discuss the current status of business ethics in the 21st century. Okay, the 21st century ushered in a new set of ethics standards, suggesting many companies had not embraced the public desire for higher ethical standards. So the keyword here is the Sarbanes-Oxley Act. Okay, the Sarbanes-Oxley Act differs penalties for the corporate frauds and established an accounting oversight board. And the Dodd-Frank Wall Street Reforms and Consumer Protections Act were later passed to reform the financial system, and the current trend is away from legally based ethical initiative in organizations and towards the culture initiative that make ethics a part of the core organization's value. Okay, so for the business ethics in the 21st century, the keyword here are the Sarbanes-Oxley Acts and the Dodd-Frank Wall Street Reforms and Consumer Protections Act. Okay, these two acts has passed through the Congress. Okay, and start developed in the 21st century. And last questions number 5. So how do values and judgments play a critical role when we make ethical decisions? Okay, this type of question is also very subjective. Okay, there can be a lot of different answer. As long as your answer is acceptable, logical, okay, then your answer is correct. Okay, so this is the example from my answer. Okay, one difference between an ordinary decisions and an ethical one, it lies in the points where the accepted rule no longer serves, and the decisions maker is faced with the responsibility for weighing the value and reaching a judgment in a situation which is not quite the same as any he or she has faced before. So another difference relates to the amounts of emphasis decisions maker place on their own value and accepted priorities within the company. So consequently here, value and judgments play a critical role when we make ethical decisions. So this is the first example, and then this the second example. Okay, you can answer like this, you also can answer like this. Okay, an individual personal moral value are only one factor in the ethical decisions making process. true moral value can be applied to a variety of situations in life, and some people do not distinguish everyday etiquette from business one. Although the truthfulness, honesty, fairness, and openness are often assumed to be self-evident and accepted, the business strategy decisions involve complex and detailed discussions, okay? Because it involves the profit of the business, okay? Profit of the business. And many people with limited business experience suddenly find themselves making decisions about the product quality, advertising, pricing, sales technique, hiring practice, and pollution control. So the values they learn from the family, from the religions, and school may not provide specific guidelines for these complex business decisions. Because this business decision, we need the knowledge, okay? We need the knowledge, we need the skill, okay? And we need the experience, okay? To make the decisions for all of these things. Okay, do you have any questions, class, for the tutorial answer? Let me alert it here. Materials. Tutorial 1. Tutorial. Cebu already turns into red zone, okay, and we will start our PKP tomorrow, right? No, tomorrow. Yeah, tomorrow. It will start at 12 midnight, okay? So please stay safe, everyone. It's very dangerous to go outside because the exposure area is everywhere. Actually, for the tutorial question just now, right? For the questions are the famous questions in the past year examination questions, okay? The question is keep repeating. If you look at this one, tutorial questions, this is the complete tutorial questions, right? Okay, all of these questions are the famous questions in final examinations. Yeah, the question in the final exam actually they keep repeating itself. Okay, if you can say around 60% is repeat. Okay, so all of these questions are the famous one. For example, maybe actually the questions card is the same. It's just the way how they ask the questions are different. Okay, for example, the questions, okay, they use the different sentence, but actually the contents that they want to ask is the same. So all of these are the famous questions in the final examinations. Okay, no questions, right? If you don't have any questions, so we already end our chapter 1 for management ethics, and next week, next class, we will start chapter 2. Okay, we will start chapter 2. So next class, I will start chapter 2. After I complete the lecture for chapter 2, I will give you the tutorial for chapter 2 again, and we will discuss the answer again. Okay, so that's all for today, class. Thank you everyone for your times. Let's see how many of you turned in. Where is tutorial questions? Okay, everyone turned in the answer already. Okay, good job. So that's all for today. So thank you everyone for your times today, and see you again next week. Okay, so stay safe and stay healthy. Goodbye everyone.